What is it that you want? You don't know? In that case, I have an exercise that will give you greater clarity. First, make a list of what you don't want. Then write the opposite. For survival reasons, our brain is designed to detect what's not right, what we don't have, and what we are not. This allows us to remain alert to any threat or danger. So let's use that to our advantage. For example, a few years ago, this was my list. 1. I don't want to work on something that I'm not passionate about, that has no relevance with who I am, and that pays me poorly. 2. I don't want to be in a relationship in which my love is not reciprocated, or vice versa. 3. I don't want financial troubles or to experience moments of scarcity. 4. I don't want to continue rejecting my body anymore and feel like I overeat in a cycle of self-sabotage. 5. I don't want to continue to seek well-being outside of my life in alcohol, cigarettes, relationships, approval of others, etc. 6. I don't want to live in the city. 7. I don't want to give up my dream of writing a book. 8. I don't want to have toxic relationships. 9. I don't want to be overwhelmed by fear. 10. I don't want to feel bad for long periods of time. Then, for each statement, I wrote the opposite. 1. I want to create a job in which I feel passionate, purposeful, and prosperous. 2. I want to have a loving, reciprocal, synergistic, and spiritual relationship. 3. I want financial freedom and abundant resources. 4. I want to love my body, listen to it, and eat the necessary nutrients to make it vibrant. 5. I want to find well-being and love in my connection with Source before resorting to external means in order to fill any emptiness. 6. I want to live at the beach. 7. I want to finish and publish my book. 8. I want to have cordial, loving, and true interpersonal relationships. 9. I want love and compassion to steer my life. 10. I want feeling good to be my number one priority so that when I feel disconnected from the truth, I am more able to consciously return to it. The previous exercise is extremely powerful because it allows you to understand several things. 1. Life teaches us through adversity exactly what we don't want. 2. By knowing what we don't want, we can be clearer about what we do want. 3. When we begin to inquire into what we do want, our imagination becomes restless, our soul is hardened, and we begin to vibrate with a stronger and more magnetic energy. 4. By focusing on what we want, we are activating the law of manifestation, and everything that vibrates with that energy will be attracted to us. Now, it is your turn to do it and begin to discover what it is that you really want. Please download the PDF that comes with this audio and use it as a guide for this exercise. Fear, the illusion. Perfect love casts out fear. If fear exists, then there is no perfect love. A Course in Miracles. In life, there are fears that we intrinsically have and others that we pick up over time. There are many lines of thought on the subject of fear. Personally, I define it as an emotion that can guide us in life if we allow it to merely be the co-pilot of our life and not the driver. Biologically, fear can be defined as our sense of survival. Some time ago, I learned about an effect termed by the scientists as the fight or flight response. This response carries an extensive explanation, but I will tell you my short and simple version. Hundreds of years ago, our ancestors lived in a rather hostile environment in which they were required to hunt and tackle challenging climates to survive. In our brain, we have a gland called the amygdala, which is responsible for reacting when we are faced with some form of danger. For example, when a predator was about to attack one of our ancestors, the latter had to make a decision: fight or flee. Psychologically, what happens in a moment of such stress is that the brain sends a warning signal through the amygdala to the whole body. Then, neurotransmitter substances, among them cortisol, are produced in order to help us survive. To this day, this primitive component still exists within us. The only difference is that in modern times, we don't have a predator attacking us. But the amygdala will alert us to situations that are perceived as threatening, but in reality, they are not. For example, my boss yelled at me, I'm stuck in traffic, I fought with my partner, I have many debts to pay, I see myself in the mirror and I don't like what I see. The stress generated by these life circumstances or these damaging thoughts puts us in a fight or flight state, causing us to be contentious to situations, people, and even ourselves, contaminating our being physically and emotionally, to the point of becoming ill. We live in one of the most emotionally and physically ill societies in history, and all because we have not made sense of our fears, where they come from, and what we can do to tackle them once and for all. The solution to our fears is not to flee from them, for they will continue to cast a shadow forever, but rather to be clear on what our fears really are, and when confronted with them, to look them in the eyes with the courage to understand them, to forgive them, and to attend to them with that part of us that is ever wise and eternal, our soul. In my own life, fear has taken over the driver's seat on many occasions, and has definitely stopped me from making important decisions, subjected me to compulsive behaviors, in my case, overeating, and has compelled me to stay in undesirable comfort zones. In recent years, and through various exercises that I will share with you in this book, I have learned to give my fear a guidance role rather than one of leadership. Of course, if at any moment I am faced with a situation of life or death, fear will certainly assume its deserved position of captain. As you will soon discover, we cannot live without fear, since it is what keeps us alive. Let's call it the sense of survival. It plays a very important role in our existence, yet it becomes present in so many untimely moments that we must take it our task not to believe in the misleading ideas it brings to our reality, such as feelings of envy, jealousy, incompetence, negativity, victimization, sabotage, not being enough, fear of failure, guilt, shame, and the conviction that an external element will fill internal voids. Comfort zone versus uncertainty. Paula, I really want to change, but it is so difficult. I am not ready. If I had $1 every time someone told me a version of the above statement, I would be a rich woman. We believe that being ready means when I'm not afraid to leave the comfort zone. Well, I have news for you. Very few people wake up one day feeling they're no longer fearful, and therefore ready to surrender to the unknown. Even those brave knights and heroes from the history books have been scared, and I can assure you that on the day of the battle, they didn't wake up saying, "Today I'm ready and not afraid to die." The blessed comfort zone, so referred to by many of us, can be a lethal trap that can steer us to live a lifetime of incongruency and unfulfilled dreams. So why is the comfort zone so attractive, despite its clear negative connotation? We humans have learned that the worst thing that can happen to us is to be in a state of uncertainty. We must always know how, where, and when. And if these variables cannot be answered, our primitive fear is triggered, and we prefer to stay on the shore, even when we know that the island is going up in flames. In other words, we prefer to burn in the fire rather than to jump into the high seas to find other lands. Sound familiar? Did you know that from 0 to 18 months of life is the time which we create the most neurological connections? In fact, we develop more during that time than we develop from 18 months to 100 years. Incredible, isn't it? The reasons are plenty, but the most fascinating one is that a child with no knowledge is in complete uncertainty, at the mercy of her parents or caregivers, who teach him or her, and while trusting in complete uncertainty. Her brain is alert, learning every detail of her environment. The same happens to us as we get older. We hope that a crisis that unleashes uncertainty will affect us in order to find that state of faith in the unknown. Albert Einstein said so in his definition of crisis. Do not pretend that things will change if we always do the same. The crisis is the best blessing that can happen to people and countries, because the crisis brings progress. Creativity is born from the distress, as the day is born from the dark night. It is in crisis that invention, discovery, and large strategies are born. Whoever overcomes crisis outdoes himself without being overcome. I agree with the above definition, but would add the following. We should not wait until the crisis arises to welcome uncertainty. Learning to surrender with faith to each moment, allowing the unknown to manifest, is one of the best ways to stimulate the wisdom that lies within us. What is the worst that can happen? The ship is safest when it's in the port. But that's not what ships were built for. Paulo Coelho. When I first began my coaching training, the teacher asked us to practice with someone we already knew. I applied coaching to my family, as they were excited about my new career. My mother was one of them. She had a quote-unquote stable job, but felt unfulfilled. She experienced harassment in the workplace and extremely long work days. It was too much. Even with all these struggles, because of her positive attitude, she managed to survive that employment. When we began with the coaching sessions, I asked her about all areas in her life and discovered that her work stood out. I followed by asking her, "What are the reasons that stop you from leaving your current work?" She said, "I can't quit. I have too many financial commitments, and we can't live on your father's salary alone." I then said, "Are you sure?" You see, we humans have certain beliefs that were imposed or are remnant of past experiences. Rarely do we stop to wonder if what we believe is the truth or only a perception of it. It was then that we went on to analyze ways to make this possible. We started by assessing what expenses can be trimmed down. What else can you do? What kind of skills do you have that can open doors in another company or perhaps consulting work? We began to shed light during the assessment, but we couldn't stop there. I had to ask her the million-dollar question. What is the worst that can happen if you quit? Once I asked her, she immediately told me, "I wouldn't be able to pay my financial commitments, as I would not have a monthly income." So we continued. And what is the worst that can happen if you can't pay your financial commitments? That I burden your father too much with debts. And what is the worst that can happen if you burden my father too much financially? That we could have problems with the banks. What is the worst that can happen if you have problems with the banks? That we lose assets because of our troubles. And what is the worst that can happen if you lose assets? That we have no place to live and have to live on the streets. And what is the worst that can happen if you live on the streets? We will be cold and hungry. And what is the worst that can happen under such a situation? We will die. Eureka! Fear shows us that the worst scenario is death. Thus, you must remain in anguish, killing yourself gradually, but not as quickly as the previous setting that would, hypothetically, kill you. We delve deeper, analyzing all scenarios. Scenario 1. To burden someone too much. Question. Have you thought about your monthly expenses and how you could reduce them? Answer. Well, by not working means I don't have to pay a maid to clean the house, which would be a big savings. Question 2. With said clarity concerning expenses versus income, could you suggest the idea to your husband, my father in this case? Yeah, I'm sure he would understand me. He sees how tired and ill I am. He has told me more than once to resign. Question 3. Your husband has businesses. Could you help him? Yeah, that is true. With my management skills, I could help him get organized. And I am more assertive with employees than he is, which could help to keep money from being wasted. In addition, there are several properties that I can help him sell. Also, if I quit, I will receive some income that will give me time to settle down. She sighed and told me, I feel excited, afraid, but inspired. I can't wait to leave that job. I want to tell you that this conversation was enough for her to resign. But it took a few more coaching sessions and a couple of setbacks in her workplace, which in the end were gifts from the universe reconfirming the journey she had to take. It doesn't happen overnight. There was a lot of fear in the early phase of her transformation. 3 months later, she quit her job. And today, she would be first to tell you that, at 55, she's never been happier. Nowadays, she's willing to share her story and always begins by telling the question that changed her life. What is the worst that can happen? What happens is that fear clouds us. It submerges us in a cave from which we are terrified of leaving. But once we're able to climb out of it and see the light, we will never want to hide in the cave ever again. When we actually head out from that fictional comfort zone, our brains become creative. You probably have heard that phrase, necessity is the mother of all inventiveness. The problem is that we don't even give ourselves the time to consider the question, much less play with the idea. Now it's your turn. What is your current situation? What would you like to do about it? Be very honest with yourself. If you decide to go for it, what is the worst that can happen? With each response to the question, what is the worst that can happen? Ask yourself the same question again. What is the worst that can happen if? Do this at least 5 times, or until you get to the root of your fear. Once you discover your reasons for staying in the comfort zone, ask yourself if they're 100% genuine and what other ways they could be resolved. It is amazing how we believe things without even questioning them. Now, come up with at least 20 actions that you can do to resolve, change, or improve your current situation. It may be that only you do 1 or 2 actions. It doesn't matter. The important thing is to open your mind to the possibilities. Your imagination will take you places. This is the only way that extraordinary lives are built, and I know that you deserve to have one. Courage and inspiration. To be a warrior is not a simple matter of wishing to be one. It is rather an endless struggle that will go on to the very last moment of our lives. Nobody is born a warrior in exactly the same way that nobody is born an average man. We make ourselves into one or the other. Carlos Castaneda. The word courage derives from the Latin word cor, which means heart. To have courage is to do things from the heart. It is like when we are very much in love. We can and we will do whatever it takes to be with that person. It is the same thing with other situations in life. The motivation to actually do things is not born of logic, is not born in our mind. That is why it is so difficult to motivate ourselves sometimes, and much more so if you have to motivate yourself to be brave. Forget it. You will probably be left waiting for that day. The new concept I want to bring to light for you is the word inspiration. And it is born not from your mind, but from your heart. Dr. Wayne Dyer, when referring to several of his creations, talks about how the word inspired, it is to be in spirit or in connection with yourself, with your center. When you discover what inspires you, what makes your heart sing, then you have access to the wisdom that exists in the universe, to ideas, and to creativity elements that will make your soul evolve. You may say to yourself, I don't know what inspires me. That is why I bring you several questions to reflect upon in order to help you decode the yearnings of your soul. Number 1. If failing were impossible, what risks would you take? Number 2, if money wasn't a concern, what would you dedicate your life to? Number 3, if you had to pay to dedicate your life to something and you had all the money to do it, what would it be? Number 4, if tomorrow you woke up and everything you had to do had already been resolved, how would you spend your day? Number 5, what do you believe is your unique way of serving the world? Number 6, what talents do you know you have, but for some reason you have not used them for a long time, or you have never nurtured them? Number 7, besides time and money, what do you most desire? Number 8, what makes your heart sing? Number 9, what can you do for hours without realizing that time has gone by? Number 10, what topics or hobbies can keep you talking about them all night? Number 11, what have you wanted to do for a long time but still postponing? Number 12, if you weren't scared, what decisions would you make in your life? Take your time responding to these questions. Be kind to yourself if the answers don't come immediately. It may be that so far you've been thinking mostly from your mind and not from your heart. Breathe, listen to your heart, and trust that if your intention is to receive answers, they will come clearly and at the right time.